Greetings everyone and welcome back to 365 Days of Prog. Today we're gonna be reviewing the album From Silence to Somewhere by the band Wobbler.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
This album is quite interesting and there's a lot that I want to say about it, but beforehand here are some of my favorite bits from this album. So we're starting things off with some pretty high spirits today with the album that was ranked by the Progarchives as the best release of the year 2017. And it's not often that we do get to listen to one of those Progarchive top albums of the year, because honestly I've listened to a lot of them, at least the ones from the 70s and sorta 80s era, but as you go into the late 80s, the 90s and the 2000s, you suddenly get to see albums which I don't personally know all that much, and that's exactly why I have this series to begin with. But if there's one thing I've learned from albums that are rated highly over on the Progarchives, that usually means that viewers of this channel also rate these albums accordingly. Unless it's neo-prog, you guys just really don't seem to like neo-prog. But subsequently, what it means that if an album is rated highly on the Progarchives, there is some sort of pressure on me to give it some sort of, similar rating. And the thing that I like the most is of course being under pressure. But in all honesty, I will actually try and give my own personal, objective and also subjective opinion about this album, although I know that it has perfect ratings over on the Progarchives, and maybe by many you think that this album is perfect, but I'll do my best at representing my own view, and I've learned of the struggles of having my own view come through in the video I did about Robert Wyatt's Rock Bottom, which of course wasn't matching to many expectations of my viewers. So today's album is coming to us from the band Wobbler, which originates in Norway. Now, Norway is usually very underrepresented on this list, and I'm really happy that we're getting this very high and prestigious album, because maybe that will remedy it. And Wobbler have been in the game for quite a while now. They've actually founded in 1999, and the album we're looking at today, as I've already mentioned, was released in 2017, and there's actually another release by them which came out in 2020. Now, this album actually came out after 6 years of radio silence from the band. No live albums, no compilations, no nothing, just no one knew what was going on, but apparently behind the scenes this album took about 5 years to create, maybe give or take, because they probably didn't work on it for the entirety of those 5 years, and then it was released on the 6th year, and just like nothing, the band Wobbler has come back to grace us with their music. Now, From Silence to Somewhere features basically 3 long epics and 1 shorter filler piece. Now, if you know my personal taste in music, you know that I like my music like I like my night's sleep. Long. And one point that I've seen coming again and again in reviews about this album was how well Wobbler were able to perfect their creation of longer epics, because if I understand it correctly, their last album from 2011, Rights at Dawn, didn't quite do the long epics justice and wasn't composed quite well as on this album. Now, the music on here has many colors on it, and you can feel a lot of influences by bands like ELP, King Crimson, Genesis, Yes, Pink Floyd, and many more. And in the case of these bands that sound like a lot of other bands combined, you don't really have to start comparing them to each and every one of them. You can just say that they have their own unique sound. But here comes my first and major piece of criticism towards this album. Despite having hints and sounds and colors like many of those bands which I've just mentioned to you, the one thing that really lacks to me is the structure that they've all perfected, which I believe, at least personally, Wobbler hasn't quite been able to implement in this album. The musicianship on here is superb, the players all get their time to shine, the music really sounds good, but the thing is that the simple compositional structure on this album is quite lacking, and therefore it really hurts the connection that can be formed between the music and the listener. I can forgive the fact that the different musical ideas found on here have some really rough cuts between them, just call it an artistic choice. But the thing I really can't look past is the fact that we don't really get any good structure that has one motif coming back from the start at the finish and then, you know, tying everything up together beautifully. Now, I'm not saying that it's a must and Wobbler can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to create music like others have already created. But the thing is, to me at least, this mostly sounded like a compilation of really great ideas. So they've played a lot of things, they had a lot of motives going on, they were all pretty great, and they were just thrown together and there was nothing really connecting them to one another and making the songs feel whole. If they were to have taken an idea from the start and then reintroduce it like with a twist on it at the end, tying everything up together into one song, I would like it. But they just don't really seem to do that. They do it just a bit in the title track and also in Foxlight, but honestly they don't really do more than that. So I think the best way to describe what I'm talking about is using an example. So let's take a classic one, Atom Heart Mother by Pink Floyd. That one has the father's shout motive at the beginning and it comes back 2 times at the start, and then you have the amazing build up going all the way to the end of the song where we are again reintroduced to that motive, and it really ties everything together, although we've been through a lot on the way there. And you've got it in many different places. You have Genesis's Supper's Ready with the Hello Babe part, you also have Yes's and You and I, you have 2112, you have Tarkus, you have so many bands who did it, and you know, it's a tried and tested thing. It works and it sounds good, but that just really lacks for me with Wobbler. But the funny thing is, no matter how many reviews about this album I read, I didn't find anyone pointing this thing out. So I gave this album a second listen just to see that I wasn't delusional, and no, I wasn't delusional. This album really doesn't have a lot of repetition to it, which I would have loved to hear more of. And no, I never expected myself to say that I want more repetition in prog, but you know, here, the day has come. But other than that, this album is quite terrific. The playing on here is strong. I love the inclusion of those 70s keyboards with the Moog and the Hammond organ and the Mellotron. They all sound really well on here. And honestly, I really like the fact that although it sounds like retro prog, it also has some hints of modern era music, which really goes to show that Wobbler not only is recreating the past, but has learned from it. But yeah, this album is surely great. I had a great time listening to it. The only thing that really brought it down to me was, of course, the lack of cohesive structure, but other than that, I really liked it, and I think that the song that did the best job at having a good structure was Foxlight, which I really enjoyed, but at the same time I probably enjoyed it a lot because of the flutes, because I really like flutes, so maybe I like it because of the flutes, who knows? This is such a lovely cover. I really like this cover. Of course, on first glance, it really screams to me of another cover we've seen on this list, being Hugtid by Agusa, mainly for using these warmer tones of colors and of course having the framing all around it. I quite like the hand-drawn aesthetic of this cover, and I like the paintings that look sort of like semi-medieval in some way and depicting these really bizarre events, creatures and people. And of course, this entire cover is composed with a great sense of weight, so everything really feels balanced on here, which I personally really love. And lastly, the band logo. It is really crowded, there's a lot going on it, but despite all that, it is pretty cool and you can really understand what's written on it. You can see that it says Wobbler on it, despite, you know, having so many symbols on it, and I really like the way that it hinders to Nordic traditions. I think it really looks cool, and honestly I love the fact that they use this on their albums. Do I know what their band logo means? No, I don't, but it's cool as fuck. This album doesn't quite pass my perfect and close to it threshold, so it will receive a very fitting rating of 8 out of 10. Hopefully I didn't disappoint anyone listening to this who thinks this is a 10 out of 10 album. I think that it's good, but it's not quite there for me. But again, I believe that the releases in the late 2010s are definitely less intriguing than an album like this. But that's about it, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this video and stay tuned for tomorrow because we're going to be listening to Is This the Life We Really Want by Roger Waters. I of course want to thank my lovely supporter over on Patreon, so thank you so much to Clay Walnum, you are the best, and if any of you want to support me over on Patreon, you can find the link down in the description or in my about page. But that's about it, guys. Have a wonderful day and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Bye, guys.